All right, man. Today we're going to talk about rock bottom and how rock bottom can be a catalyst for change, right?
Correct.
So, can you describe in your own words what rock bottom looked like for you?
So rock bottom for me basically looked like 2021. I had my fentanyl overdose. I was in a room with about 30 of what you would so-called friends, and I had we were freebasing fentanyl, and I took one hit off of it and completely coded out. Didn't even know it. Um, when I came to, I was informed that I was hit with two Narcans, and I was out for about 4 to 5 minutes. And what really disturbed me about that, for one, is I had kind of died and didn't even know what happened. It was it was completely, I was oblivious to. I mean, it wasn't like I got a sick feeling, like, or I felt like I overdosed and was like, oh, I need to go to the hospital, and just didn't. Like, it was that quick. You just died. And when I came back, um, whereas there was a few people in the room that I was particularly close to that legitimately cared, predominantly everybody in the room was upset because the fentanyl, when I hit it and passed out, of course I dropped it on the floor. And so pretty much everybody in the room was pissed that I wasted the fentanyl. Like, they didn't really care that I had almost died. They were just mad because I messed up their high. And it made me think, like, as I was laying there trying to recoup and recover, I was laying there thinking to myself, these people, I almost died, and everybody in this room mad at me over $30. They were wanting to get paid back their money for the fentanyl. And I can explain what I felt internally during that moment. It was like a loose connection between the flesh and the soul. Like, I was there, but I didn't feel all there. I had a tingling sensation throughout my entire body that lasted for weeks. Um, I felt detached, like just like something. Everything wasn't just in flow like it was before. Like I felt extremely removed from everything. It was a weird feeling, and that's about the best way I can describe it. But that was when the notion of like things got to change, right? So as soon as I was able to get out of bed, I left, and I went down to. Well, first I got real sick, of course, because I started withdrawing a couple days after that, and I got real sick, and I didn't want to keep perpetuating that sickness, so I decided that I needed to move and get away from all the people that I was around, and so I went down to Galveston and stayed down there for a few months, and that was a horrible situation in itself. It was I mean, I think it was a good situation for my sobriety, but the situation itself down there was absolutely demoralizing, dehumanized me really bad. Um, I, man, I honestly, I didn't even feel like a man anymore at that point. And so when I decided to make the move to, and I wasn't getting any better. That throw that in there. Like, whereas withdrawal symptoms seemed to taper off around 9 to 12 days, 9 14 days, mine were just steadily increasing. Every day it was worse and worse and worse. And so I got to the point where I couldn't take care of myself. I couldn't defend myself in the world I was in. Um, I couldn't sustain a living. Um, and I ended up back on the streets of Dallas 2 months after that, literally in a pair of sweatpants and a pair of shoes and nothing else. And my body had given out, and it was on the Churchill Bridge on I-75 where I just collapsed. And I laid there for about 16 hours, didn't move, and car after car after car just kept passing me. Even a few ambulances passed me, and nobody stopped. Nobody stopped to see if I was okay, and I didn't have the strength to move on after that. So, whereas it says like rock bottom to me is a mindset shift, and that's where my mindset shift occurred. right? But I didn't get sober that day or even that week or even within those 2 months. It was drug out over a course of time.
Right. So it was a gradual thing. It wasn't like some people describe it as, oh, I had this, I woke up in my car in a tree and, I was all alone and upside down.
You
And that
know,
was that was my moment, but for you it was a gradual process.
right. And everybody's rock bottom is a little different. Some people can come to a realization that they have a problem and shift that focus or shift their mindsets into, changing and moving away from it. And some people just have to get, go through it a little harder. I was one of those people that, I was in that world for 25 years. And that was addiction, homelessness, and everything that comes with, that kind of underground world that we typically look over as what we call normal people, and we don't understand. That was the world I lived in.
So, how did your perception of life change in that course of time? So, as you're going through withdrawals and you're staying clean, how did your perception of life for you change?
At first, my withdrawal period lasted about a year. I had done a lot of damage to my body, so my body was no longer producing heavy or healthy blood. I had given myself cirrhosis of the liver. I had also developed Crohn's disease, which is a stress-induced disease. Um, and at first, I mean, for the first 8 months of that, I questioned it almost every day because, like I said, my symptoms got worse. The longer I was sober, the sicker I was becoming. Um, I spent more trips to the hospital getting sober than I ever did in addiction because I was having liver failure multiple times. I had to get blood transfusions because I was having a lot of internal bleeding, and so it was kind of a nightmare for that first year. That first year was rough.
Well, with that being rough, what were you afraid of during that time? Like being in recovery, what were you afraid of, or were you hesitant about things as you started
I legitimately
recovery?
thought I was going to die. And I had come to this realization that I didn't want to die alone. Um, that was kind of like one of my worst fears at that time because I had turned my back on that, on that world. So I didn't have those connections that I had in the streets, you know what I mean? And my family wasn't immediately accepting, of me when I went into recovery. So I was in a dark space by myself, and my worst fear was just, simply just dying alone.
Was there anybody or anything that gave you encouragement or hope at that time? Even though you felt that way, you're still here.
Right.
So obviously you didn't give up hope. What if anything may have contributed to that, or some group of people?
So I had a friend of mine reach out to me. She had about a year and a half sober, and she reached out to me one day, and it was kind of random, and I had no intention of getting sober. Uh, I'd actually just checked out of the hotel I was in, and I had hit for $1,500 on this gambling game on my phone. And she happened to call me and said, "Hey, I need some help moving some furniture. Would you mind helping me out?" And she was a good friend of mine, and I always try to do what I could for her. So I was like, "Yeah." And she picked me up, and I told her I had that money, of course, because my whole plan was to help her so that way she could help me go get my drugs later.
Right.
And so basically, she looked at me. She said, "Bro, let's take that money and let's get you into sober living." And I rejected it, and I was like, "No, we're not doing that." And she was like, "No, seriously." She's like, "I got the hookup with Oxford House down in Dallas, and I can get you in today within 24 hours. And I still kind of was like, eh. But she's literally on the way to the auction house to go pick that furniture up. She made all the phone calls. right there in front of me, and they accepted me in that night. And so I kind of dove into it after that. And then, of course, as my recovery progressed, Oxford House didn't kind of end up working out too well. I mean, it was a good place to get it started, but it wasn't a place I was going to find long-term recovery. So, my mom had actually reached out to me, and I had a discussion with her, and they were like, "Let's move you up to Amarillo and see if we can't get you into treatment up here." And so I agreed to that. So they came down there and picked me up, and that first 3 months here in Amarillo were tough because a lot of the treatment facilities wouldn't take me because I couldn't take care of myself. I wasn't self-sustainable, right? I could barely walk 10 feet. I had to have help showering. I had to have my mom used to come over and help cook my meals, watch over me, make sure I wasn't dead. And so when I did find a treatment facility that would take me in, for the first 2-3 months there, I was on 24-hour watch where I had to have one of their staff members with me at all times to make sure they wouldn't have to call an ambulance or get me to the hospital in a hurry.
So you found a support system,
Yeah.
in your family, at least your mom, and
Yeah.
and eventually later your dad, right?
Well, I think everybody kind of came around to the fact, that I was going to give it my best shot, But honestly, I think where my family stepped in is because I don't think they thought I was going to make it either. And I think that's really where it kicked in. When it was just me messing up out in the street and living that life, it was something easy to overlook. But I think when it actually hit everybody that, oh snap, he may not be here very much longer. He's on his last leg. I mean, I looked horrible, bro. I looked horrible. I'm 6'5". I dropped down to 140 pounds. I was yellow, very decrepit looking, very weak. I mean, it was. I could feel death. I could feel it, like coming on. It was weird.
So if you had to share one or two important things about that rock bottom period, which for you we've already talked about was a length of time.
Yeah.
What are one or two things that you want people who see this that haven't reached that point or are currently in their rock bottom? What are one or two things that you want people to understand?
I think I would want people to understand that, man, when you come into recovery, you are literally at your weakest, most vulnerable point in life. You're going to have to make some really tough decisions on where do I go from here. But if you stick with it and you discipline yourself and you simply just have that desire and that willpower to keep pushing, right? And just not give up. And that's the key, is just not give up. Don't ever let yourself give up. No matter how bad it gets, no matter what's in front of you, no matter what people say, just simply keep moving forward. It gets better. It does get better.
And that's the encouraging part about it. Cover real quick some of the negative things or unsupportive things that you've heard, because you just kind of hinted at it, that people are going to say, they're going to talk crap.
Yeah.
Because they don't know. But give people examples, because I think if you say it, it lets other people hear that I've heard that and I'm not alone.
I think typically what people don't understand is we don't identify a problem until it's a problem, right? We don't look at our lives and say, what am I doing wrong, until you get slapped in the face with it, And so I would think whereas we look at as acceptance as in most recovery programs, as a person coming in here accepting that they've lived a very flawed life and it's become a problem. I think that's something we all need to look at, right? And accept it. This is a disease that thrives in social unacceptance, but we don't know how far that ripple goes when we drop that rock in the pond, and those ripple effects matter and they trickle down. And I think when we make very judgmental decisions on how we punish people, how we shame people, how we put guilt trips on people. We don't know how far that goes down, you know. And then, but we immediately put it on that person, right? And I think that's that. And I'm gonna write a book about it, man. I'm gonna call it "Creating Monsters." You know, I've seen some people take some attacks on me, for example, and not even having any inclination or any clue as to the effects that it had on my children, right? And same, and I did the same thing, right? I think we all do that from day to day. So social acceptance is important, and I think that even the Bible kind of teaches us that.